What's happening, hardscapers? Let's talk about the fastest and easiest way to install a paver patio. Let's get into this. Typically the most time consuming and costly part, if you're factoring in your labor cost to a hardscape paver project, is the excavation and disposal of that material and base preparation. But the fastest and easiest way to speed this process up by eliminating half the work is using these paver base panels or a synthetic base. Now, this paver patio is built on synthetic base, and this was built 5 years ago. It still looks amazing. Maybe you can see here, this is what we used. Our synthetic base there with our edge restraint with fasteners, if I can find one there. There it is. A screw fastener that goes right into the base and then anchors itself on the underside of that base. And that's why I like using plastic edge restraint only in this situation. So these paver base panels are high density polypropylene. They're about 2 foot by 3 foot pieces that have a tongue and groove system that lock together. You lay them out in a stagger pattern on top of a 1-inch bedding layer, and then separating your subsoil from your bedding layer using a geotextile. Once the panels are laid out, you can install your pavers on top. Use a plastic edge restraint along with the screw fasteners to tighten that edge restraint down into the base panels with the fastener system that these screws have. And then you can install your jointing compound and be on your way. Now, the reason why these speed up the time is that you only have to excavate the depth of your pavers plus the thickness of the panels, which is 3/4 of an inch, and the depth of your 1-inch bedding layer. Typically pavers are 2 3/8 of an inch, so add that all up together, you're about 4 inches in excavation that you need to do, as opposed to a traditional base using an open graded base or a dense graded base system. We're excavating in our area where we experience freeze and thaw cycles. We're doing a minimum 6-inch base plus the 1-inch bedding layer, and then plus our 2 3/8 of an inch pavers. That's about 10 inches of excavation. So immediately right off the bat, our excavation is eliminated by 60%. Not to mention other benefits like being able to walk on the panels while you install your pavers and staging your pavers on top of the panels while you're going about laying them, as opposed to when you're traditionally installing, you don't want to walk on your screed or bedding layer, which would disturb it, and then when you're laying your pavers, you'd have to re-level those areas. The reason why this requires less excavation is that these panels spread out the load over a wider area, and they also insulate the ground, preventing freeze-thaw cycles. We've even built gas fire features on top of these panels, and they hold up really well. This project right here, we built 5 years ago, and it still looks amazing to this day. Just like that previous project we've already shown you, 5 years later, it's still holding up really, really well. This isn't just a DIY product. This is something that contractors can utilize, especially in tight access areas. And today, that's where we're mostly using this, in tight access areas where we can't get a machine into the backyard, or in the case of this project, the client had a nice paver patio around their pool, and we'd have to go over it with our machine, of course protecting it with plywood, but for a small 150 square foot patio, we thought might as well just use synthetic base and hand dig this really quick. Save us a lot of time. So the steps to install a project like this is to simply excavate our 4 inches, ensuring that we're hitting subsoil. If we're not hitting subsoil, like our clay, sandy, silty mixture that doesn't include any black dirt, organic materials, we can't build on top of that. We have to continue digging. So you do want to make sure that you're hitting your subsoil after that 4-inch excavation. Otherwise, you might want to just go for a traditional dense or open graded base. And if any of these terms that I'm using confuse you, we have videos linked in the description below with full-length videos on every single topic that we're covering here. After our excavation, we compact our subsoil, install a non-woven geotextile, and then we go ahead and screed our bedding layer. For this, we use an HPB, high performance bedding. This is a 3/8 inch or 1/4 inch clean angular crushed stone. You can use a concrete sand, but you have to actually compact it before you put the panels on top, and that disturbs it, and then you have to re-level it and then compact it a little bit more. With HPB, you just have to screed it out, lay your panels on top, and then you're ready for laying your pavers. Now, we also need to stagger out our panels. So I've got a half panel here that I've cut, and this is going to start the next row of panels coming this way towards me. Ever after landscaping, Mike speaking? But once the panels are installed, just simply lay out your pavers, install your plastic edge restraint with the screw fasteners, and install your jointing compound, whatever that might be, whether it is polymeric sand or semi-permeable jointing compound, ensuring that you compact that polymeric sand down to the bottom of the joint still, and then activate it. And that is your project complete. We have a video breaking down the numbers on this. Once again, it'll be linked in the description below. For tight access projects where you're gonna have to hand dig, it saves quite a bit of money to install paver base panels as your base, as opposed to a dense or open graded base. And then in comparison to machine digging, it's about a similar price point. It's going to be higher cost of materials, but a lower cost of labor. Now, like I said, most of the time nowadays we're using this in tight access situations for the most part, so we're actually not installing this product as much as we used to, but it's still a valuable product to know that you can use it in certain situations and let your clients know that you can use this product for them. But especially for DIYers, if you don't have access to equipment or don't feel comfortable renting a piece of equipment, it's going to save you a lot of time in that base preparation and excavation stage of a paver project. Now, I would not use this in certain situations. First being, if you are using lower quality pavers, they're gonna have higher tolerances. That means from one paver to the next, the height differences might be noticeable. So if you're laying them on a uniform panel, you're going to notice that, and you're actually gonna have to lift a piece up, add some concrete sand underneath, lay it back down. It's gonna be a major pain. So you do wanna use high quality pavers on this type of product and not wet cast, because they also have a higher tolerance to them. And more than likely not natural stone, but you can lay out the panels and then screed another 1-inch bedding layer of concrete sand, which will help you in that leveling situation if you do decide to use these panels anyways. You can see in this video, we had to do that because our borders were thicker than our interior pavers. So we actually had to lay out our border on the panels, then screed a fine layer of concrete sand to be able to lay our interior pavers to the height of our border pavers. Another area where I wouldn't use this is in a raised patio, because when you're building a raised patio, you typically have to build that up with gravel. So you already have the base installed. It doesn't make sense to use these paver base panels on top of that. And then finally, the other situation that comes to mind that I wouldn't use them is when it comes to a pool patio. I've done it in the past, it does work, but when you're dealing with multiple slopes, it gets a little bit trickier when you're using these base panels for pavers to lie on with those multiple slopes moving away from the pool patio, and especially if you're using large format slabs like we're doing in this situation. Like I said, it worked. We did have to use some concrete sand in some places to be able to finesse those slopes together, but I wouldn't do it again. But using these paver base panels make your project go easier and faster, especially in those tight access situations. And if you have a question about any of the terms that we used, or you want to see our math on how we compared using paver base panels versus excavating and doing a typical base for a paver project, you can click that video that shows up here, or find all those videos in the description below.